On the night of April 14, 1865, inside Ford's Theatre in Washington, the Civil War was almost over. The Union had survived, the Confederacy had collapsed. The bloodiest conflict in American history was finally ending. The President, Abraham Lincoln, sat beside his wife enjoying a rare evening of public celebration. He would not see the morning. When John Wilkes Booth fired that single shot, he did not just kill a president, he froze a man in time. From that moment forward, Lincoln would no longer age. He would not decline. He would not disappoint. He would become legend. But legends cast long shadows. Behind the legend was a family that lived in grief. 3 sons would die. A widow would unravel. A surviving heir would spend his life outrunning tragedy. Within generations, the Lincoln bloodline would disappear entirely. This is not simply the story of a president, it is the story of a family that could not escape the weight of history. To understand how loss shaped the Lincoln legacy, we must begin long before the White House, before politics, before power. We must begin on the American frontier. The Lincoln family began in instability. Thomas Lincoln was a farmer and carpenter in Kentucky. He worked hard, but hard work did not guarantee security in early America. Land claims overlapped. Titles were contested. Entire farms could be lost over legal technicalities, and they often were. The Lincolns moved repeatedly from Kentucky to Indiana and later to Illinois, each move an attempt to outrun uncertainty. Young Abraham grew up watching his father struggle to secure permanence in a world where nothing felt permanent. This environment forged something critical inside him, a deep understanding that stability was fragile and that life could change in an instant. Then, in 1818, that fragility turned personal. His mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, fell ill from milk sickness, a common frontier disease caused by poisoned cattle. She died when Abraham was 9. There was no hospital, no elaborate funeral, no national mourning, just a shallow grave in the woods. For a child already surrounded by instability, this loss cut deep. Lincoln would later describe his mother as his greatest influence, but he barely had time with her. Loss entered his life early, and it never left. Lincoln grew into adulthood carrying what friends described as melancholy. Periods of profound sadness, withdrawal, and reflection shaped him. He was not naturally cheerful. He was contemplative. He read law books by candlelight and walked miles to borrow volumes of Shakespeare. He trained his mind relentlessly. Ambition for Lincoln was not vanity, it was escape. When he met Mary Todd Lincoln, he found someone who believed in his destiny. Mary came from a prominent Kentucky family. She was educated, politically sharp, and socially confident. She saw greatness in Abraham long before the nation did. They married in 1842, but their marriage was complex. Mary had a quick temper and emotional volatility. Lincoln had emotional distance and introspection. They loved each other deeply. They also struggled deeply. Their greatest trials would not come from politics. They would come from parenthood. The Lincolns had 4 sons. Each birth symbolized hope. Each death carved trauma into the foundation of the family. Robert Todd Lincoln was born in 1843. He was serious, disciplined, and often emotionally guarded, perhaps a response to growing up in a household marked by grief. He would be the only Lincoln son to reach old age, but even survival came at a cost. Edward Baker Lincoln was born in 1846. He died in 1850 at just 4 years old, likely from tuberculosis. His death shattered Mary. Lincoln grieved quietly. This was the first child they buried. It would not be the last. William Wallace Lincoln, called Willie, was bright and sensitive. In 1862, while the Civil War consumed the nation, Willie fell ill. The White House was chaotic during wartime. Soldiers, politicians, and visitors were all coming and going. Sanitation was poor, and typhoid fever spread easily. Willie died at age 11. Mary collapsed emotionally. Lincoln, already burdened with the war, now carried the private grief of a father who could not protect his son. He would sit alone in Willie's room, weeping. In the middle of war, he was just a parent who had failed to stop death. Thomas Lincoln, known as Tad, was energetic and mischievous. He adored his father. He survived the war and the assassination, but in 1871, he died while traveling abroad with Mary at just 18 years old. 3 sons gone. Only Robert remained. By now the pattern was undeniable. The Lincoln name survived, but the family kept shrinking. When Lincoln was assassinated in 1865, America lost a president. Mary lost her anchor. Robert lost his father. Tad lost his hero. The nation turned Lincoln into a symbol. The family inherited trauma. In death, Lincoln became untouchable, frozen at the height of moral authority. But Mary did not experience glory. She experienced paranoia. Mary had endured the deaths of 3 sons. Now she faced widowhood under the harsh glare of public scrutiny. She feared poverty despite receiving a pension. She feared conspiracies. She feared that the world was closing in. Her spending habits became erratic. Her behavior was unpredictable. In 1875, her only surviving son, Robert, arranged for her to be declared insane and committed to an asylum. Imagine that moment. The widow of the president who saved the Union institutionalized and publicly humiliated. Mary eventually secured her release, but her relationship with Robert was permanently damaged. She spent her final years isolated and bitter. History celebrated her husband. History did not protect her. Robert Todd Lincoln built a distinguished career. He became Secretary of War and later served as ambassador to the United Kingdom. Yet tragedy seemed to orbit him. He was in Washington when his father was assassinated. He was nearby when President James Garfield was shot in 1881. He was in Buffalo shortly before President William McKinley was assassinated in 1901. Coincidence, but chilling. Robert reportedly avoided future presidential invitations, joking that presidents should not ask him to attend events. He had seen enough. He understood the fragility of power. He understood that history devours even the powerful. Robert had children, but over generations, the direct Lincoln line dwindled. By the late 20th century, there were no living descendants carrying the Lincoln surname in direct lineage. The bloodline ended quietly. No ceremony, no national mourning, just silence. The same silence that buried Nancy Hanks in the woods. The same silence that followed each child's death. The Lincoln name became immortal. The Lincoln family became mortal. Consider the pattern across decades. A mother lost in childhood, a sister lost young, 3 sons buried, a president assassinated, a widow institutionalized, a bloodline extinguished. This is not merely coincidence. It is the cost of living at the center of history. Power magnifies vulnerability. Public greatness does not shield private suffering. In fact, it may intensify it. Lincoln's empathy during the Civil War, his refusal to dehumanize the South, his sorrow at casualties, may have been born from personal grief. Loss shaped his leadership. Tragedy deepened his compassion. The family endured the pain. The nation inherited the strength. Lincoln's face is carved into mountains. His speeches are memorized in classrooms. His legacy defines American unity. But there is no living grandson, no great-great-grandchild carrying his blood. The timeline of Abraham Lincoln's family traces something paradoxical. The more the man became immortal, the more the family became fragile. History remembers heroes. History forgets households. The Lincoln family story forces us to confront a difficult question. Is greatness worth the cost, or does greatness require it? Perhaps Lincoln's suffering gave him the depth to hold a divided nation together. Perhaps without grief, there is no empathy. Without loss, no legend. The bloodline ended. The myth did not. Somewhere between those two truths lies the real story of Abraham Lincoln's family. A story not only of power and politics, but of parents, children, and the unbearable weight of history. To understand Abraham Lincoln is to understand the burdens of his family. His early years shaped his understanding of loss and resilience. His marriage and parenthood were marked by both hope and unimaginable sorrow. The lives of his children reflect the fragility of life in a time when illness and accident were ever present. Mary Todd Lincoln's struggles show how grief can consume a person, and Robert Todd Lincoln's survival shows how resilience can preserve a legacy. Each member of the Lincoln family endured loss in ways that shaped not only their personal lives, but also the course of American history. Abraham Lincoln's empathy and moral clarity cannot be separated from his private suffering. His understanding of human suffering, his capacity to forgive, and his vision for a united nation were informed by the deaths of his mother, his children, and the pressures of his family life. The Lincoln family timeline is more than a historical record. It is a testament to the intersection of public duty and private grief. It is a reminder that behind every public figure is a personal story that may never be fully understood. In tracing the Lincoln family, we see the paradox of immortality. Abraham Lincoln lives forever in memory and myth, but the people closest to him, the family who endured the greatest losses, lived fragile, finite lives. Their suffering is often overshadowed by the grandeur of the Lincoln legend. Yet understanding their experiences deepens our appreciation of the sacrifices and burdens that history can impose on those who are remembered. The story of the Lincoln family is a story of resilience, grief, and legacy. It is a story of a mother lost too soon, a father struggling for security, children lost before their time, and a surviving heir navigating both privilege and tragedy. It is the story of a nation mourning its president and a family mourning its members. The Lincoln family shows us that history is not only the record of achievements, but also the record of human endurance and suffering.